Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of our podcast. We are joined today by Tobruk Blaine. Sorry about that, Tobruk. So Tobruk, you've been at San Jose for a couple of years now, working as a Beyond Football coordinator. You are a 2-time graduate of Oregon State University as well as University of Idaho, if my memory is correct. But you're also married to the assistant AD for football operations, which I think is also interesting, both working for the same program. But we really want to know a little bit about how you got your start in college athletics and also the leadership development aspect.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Tobruk Blaine. I work for San Jose State University in our football department in a program called Beyond Football, and this is my start of my fourth, well, I guess we're wrapping up, so into my 4th season with Coach Brennan. I came on at San Jose State when he started the program. He got hired in late December of 2016, and then I was hired in July of 2017. No program like this has ever existed at San Jose State. It was sort of a vision for Coach Brennan and a priority for Coach Brennan to have some student athlete development for his athletes. And so I have a background in education. I was a high school teacher for 10 years. I have a master's in educational leadership, and kind of was pursuing high school, secondary ed, careers in that when I got the opportunity to take over the cheerleading and dance and mascot program at Boise State University. I'm a Boise native, born and raised there. I did not go to college there, but I was raised, with family members who have season tickets and things like that. So it was really a dream come true for me to take my passion for coaching into the collegiate level. And that's how I got my foot in the door with college athletics. If I'm being real, I didn't even know that some of the jobs that existed in college athletics were a thing. It never really crossed my mind to work in college athletics. Yes, I was a collegiate cheerleader at Oregon State, but I just showed up and did my job. I didn't necessarily dabble in anything beyond that. So once I got to Boise State, I got to know a lot of people within football and within the athletic department, and I got to see all the varying roles that exist, and that's sort of what led me to the position I'm in now.
Awesome. So a very unique path, obviously the high school to the college route. I guess when was that aha moment of like, I want to switch from that coaching aspect to the leadership aspect?
Yeah. So right about 2013, the show Last Chance U came out. Yep. And Miss Brittany was on the show. And I thought to myself when I saw that, like, wow, that would be a really cool role. It's kind of like a hybrid of coaching and teaching. And the whole reason why I ever got into coaching in the first place was because I wanted to make an impact in young people's lives, but I just used that. The avenue to do that for me was coaching. So I saw that existed, and then my alma mater, Oregon State, had a program called Beyond Football, and I followed football. I'm a sports fan, so I followed football in their program, but they didn't publicize it a lot. I didn't know much about it, just that it was like a program. Yep. So in 2013, I'd say which is my first year coaching at Boise State, that was when I realized, like, oh, there could be more opportunity in college athletics than I necessarily considered myself doing. And so as I got through coaching, I coached there for 4 years, I kind of started thinking that way more. I didn't want to coach cheerleading forever. There's not a lot of money in it. There's only so much you can do. I have 2 master's degrees. It was like, this was like a passion project in a sense for me to be able to do that. But as far as career goes, that wasn't necessarily the career that I wanted for my future. So that was sort of the moment of when I was like, I could do more in college athletics and still fulfill my need of like wanting to impact young people's lives. And at the time, our athletic director, Mark Coyle, who is now at Minnesota, he had mentioned to me, I think you might be good in some other areas. And he brought up some ideas to me about working in athletics. Would I ever want to leave coaching and work in athletics in a different capacity? One capacity considering would be fundraising. And that was sort of my aha moment of like, okay, if my athletic director thinks that I'm capable of doing more, then I'm not crazy to think that there's something else out there for me beyond coaching. Although coaching was like incredibly amazing and I loved every minute of it, the goods, the bads, the uglies, but I just knew that it wasn't going to be sustainable for me for my future.
Mm-hmm. So as we've seen with Stephanie here, she's had her little one in the office today, at least with us. And I know you're a mother too as well. I guess I don't have kids at this moment. I'm married, but my wife's in school, so we're just waiting until she gets out. But I guess, how does being a mother, working in sports, which is very unheard of and not very common. So I give props to both of y'all for doing it. But how have you found that that's helped you grow as a leader to build the program that you're in now? And I'm curious to hear from both you and Stephanie about that.
Yeah, I can talk on that. I am a completely different human being now as a parent than I was, before. I think that I was compassionate as a coach, and I, was a good listener, and my intentions were always good. But being a parent has like magnified that. And I think I'm just a better quality human being in general. If I go back and think about what decisions I made coaching, that maybe I would make differently now as a parent. And I can't attribute it to just parenting. I think that what we've been exposed to in our world, the social injustices that exist. I moved from Boise, Idaho, which is a predominantly white community, middle to upper class community that I worked for, the school district that I worked for. And then even working in cheerleading and dance, typically it's middle to upper class families that have kids in that role. So moving to San Jose, being around a much more diverse population, and then working in football where not only am I one of the only females, but I'm also, a minority in regard to like being Caucasian. So it was a big eye opener for me. I learned so much starting working in football and working in college athletics. And then on top of that, becoming a mom. It just, I think it softened me, not in a bad way. Like it's not softened me where you can walk all over me, because I definitely do have that edge to me of like, don't take advantage of me. Yep. And that coaching piece. But I definitely will say that I think my perspective is a little bit different. And there might be a little bit more level of understanding, patience, and those types of characteristics.
Yeah, I would have to agree with a lot of what Tobruk just said. I have always thought of myself as a compassionate and empathetic person, but becoming a mom just adds a whole deeper level to that. I definitely feel things more intensely now that I'm a mom, and it's definitely made me even more understanding of people's circumstances, and to make sure that I'm listening to them and understanding where they're coming from. Because it's a whole lot to get down on the 2-year-old's level and figure out, bless you, and figure out what is bothering them, why are they crying, what's making them upset, and just transferring that over to everyday work and being more compassionate and more thoughtful when I'm working with the student athletes, because they are still kids. So they're just older, bigger kids. So just transferring that over to work has definitely made a huge difference.
And I want to just touch on like what you're doing right now, like the multitasking. I am doing things that I just, like, my non-mom self, I would like lose my mind. But when you're a parent, you don't have a choice. So you have to make it work. And just even getting myself organized to be on this call right now during nap time, I literally just put my 2-year-old down and was just crossing my fingers that she like goes down, and my newborn, I have a 2-month-old, and luckily I was able to transfer her from the car seat to the crib. and she fell asleep. And it's like, for all of the stars to be aligned right now, for me to be on this call without a kid next to me is like a miracle. And it's almost like, oh my God, I'm proud of myself that I was able to do that. Cause there was doubt 15 minutes ago, there was doubt. And I was like, am I going to have to tell Thomas we got to reschedule? Cause I don't know if I'm going to be able to accomplish this, but here we are.
You hit the gold mine with being able to transfer that baby from the car seat to the crib seamlessly.
I don't know. It's a miracle right now.
Well, we very much thank you for your time, sweet, precious time that you probably don't get much of with nothing else going on. So, so with that, we'll move on a little bit. So hopefully you can relax for a little bit. So I guess when you got to San Jose State, talk a little bit about what was in place, or were you just tasked with, hey, this is what we want to do to figure it out, or what was there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There was nothing there. I knew Coach Brennan's vision from a very broad-based perspective. Actually, my first day there, he wasn't even at the office. Like, he was at media days for the Bay Area, does a media day with like Stanford and Cal, and he wasn't even there. So like, I get to my office and I'm kind of like, I don't even know where to begin. I remember I popped in a podcast from my guy Brian Kite, and I just started getting motivated to kind of think about what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and use his inspiring strategies to help me, think about what direction I was going to go. I did have some basis for what Coach Brennan wanted, because I had followed the Beyond Football program at Oregon State. And even though they weren't very public about it, they did have some framework on their website that I was able to take and kind of use that to get me started. But I do consider myself a really creative person, creative in the sense of like, think forward thinking and using the resources that I have to make something work. I mean, as a teacher and someone that works in public education and public, like, you don't have a lot of resources. So I was used to just trying to figure out a way to get going. And so what I did is I just started working. I just started making phone calls to alums. I started attending events on campus. I did the whole student prospect tour where like a senior in high school comes with their mom and goes on a tour of campus. I'm not from the Bay Area. I knew nothing about San Jose State University. So I just kind of started creating tasks for myself, and there wasn't anything in place. We had someone who oversaw our, SAC program, but that was pretty much it. There wasn't a lot of programming around student athlete development at all. And so, I just put one foot in front of the other, and the teacher in me wanted to like write a curriculum and have learning outcomes and like do all of those foundational things that help drive instruction. I didn't have time for that. I just went. And so now in year 4, I'm going back and I'm starting to write that foundational curriculum just based off what we've done and what's worked. And to me, honestly, in a sense of backwards design, it's worked. So that's kind of how it's gotten me to where I am now. Yeah.
So we obviously met through the NCAA Leadership Academy workshop, which we wrapped up module 1 probably around 3 or 4 weeks ago. I know I was paired up with you at some point in one of the first 2 weeks, just having some discussions. And I guess what really made you want to apply for the NCAA law program? And after the first module, how would you evaluate what you've done compared to where you want to go?
Great question. I just randomly was on LinkedIn, and one of my connections, who I don't know her personally, but her name's Ashley Goodman and she works with the Packers. She had commented on something that Lamar had posted. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And so I just clicked on it and started researching. I was like, I didn't even know the NCAA did this. And because I was able to have that information, I instantly was like, I need to be a part of this. And that's because I have been craving, since I got here, some professional development. As a teacher, you're forced to do professional development. Like, even when you don't want to, you have to. In order to move up on the pay scale, you've got to continue your education, and which is part of the reason why I obtained 2 master's degrees. So it was just like I hadn't had any true intentional guidance. I've had mentors and things here and there, but nothing that was intentional. Um, and so with that, I was like, I found out about it like a week before the deadline. Well, at that time, we are in like full lockdown mode in California. We are having like the whole state of California is on fire. It was awful. I mean, it was chaos where I was living. And in addition, we had transported students from Santa Cruz to our dorms on our campus to help house them while Santa Cruz was burning down. It was just unreal. And so our athletic director was like so busy, like it was just insane. And so to get her to write me a letter of recommendation and to get all the things in place was kind of like a fiery hoop to get through, to literally to get through to get this to happen. So I actually missed the deadline by like 8 hours, and I didn't realize it because of the time difference. And so I hit up Lamar and I was like, here's my application if you would consider it. I mean, I don't want to be one with excuses, but these are the reasons why we want to be a part of it. And I wanted it so bad. I knew that I needed it, and I was craving it. And so luckily I was able to kind of get in by the skin of my teeth. But yeah, it was just a matter of like wanting some intentional driven, data-driven direction and guidance with people. And I think the most important thing that I'm getting from law is connecting with people like you. That to me from day one of our sessions has been the most meaningful work, is when we get to talk to you guys about these similar struggles and what are you doing and what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. I mean, that to me is the most powerful work that we're doing within law.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I know right now, so we're in the process of putting our formation group together. Actually starting to ask people to be a part of it, which is exciting because everyone we've asked so far has been a yes, and an enthusiastic yes with it. But with you obviously being at Division I and already having at least some sort of a baseline of what you're doing, and then you're just restructuring, I feel like, from what you're describing. I mean, these connections are definitely invaluable, just because what you've hit on has already given me 4 or 5 different things to start thinking about for when we're developing our program. And I completely agree that it's those relationships and friendships and everything else that we're starting to dive into and connect with that really will make a big difference for us.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I really love how, like, even within the law program, everyone's at a different step. So like we have nothing whatsoever. You already have a program, but now you just want that foundational base for it. And then there are others, like I know Rutgers, they have a bunch of different like leadership things, but this is going to be a completely new program for them. So just all these different spots so that we can gain knowledge from people within the different levels that they are within making their program is fantastic.
So I guess if you had, I know, Tobruk, you mentioned some of the struggles that you guys had going on towards the deadline of the law application, but I also know that your football team went up and practiced in a completely different area than you guys are in. And your husband, obviously being in operations, I'm sure he had quite a bit going on. And if I'm remembering correctly, that was a little bit before you had your youngest kid. I guess what was that like in terms of working with him, work with the leadership aspects of everything, and the craziness of just the coronavirus, fires, everything else happening at the same time?
I don't know if you are trying to get me to get emotional on this, but it has been an insane roller coaster. In July, we were given the thumbs up to bring our team back after we had sent them home in March. You know, we'd had 3 spring practices at that point. So in July, my husband and I had to separate because he needed to go be with the team, and I was pregnant. I was 8 months pregnant at that point. I had almost a 2-year-old. The people that were helping me with childcare were some extended family, and one of them or two of them are in their 70s, and we were concerned about like their exposure. So I actually ended up moving for 45 days away from my husband with my kids so that I could be with family to help me with the kids while I worked.
Mhm.
I'm trying to tie up the loose ends of my job before I have the baby. And then right before I had the baby, luckily it was a scheduled C-section. So we knew when we were going to have the baby. But luckily we were able to reunite with Dad and get everything in order. And then the week before the baby comes, the team announces that they're going to move to Humboldt, 300 and some odd miles away from here. Well, as the director of operations, who do you think schedules all of that? So he had a lot that he was doing to get all of that organized. But he luckily was able to have someone, once he got up there and he got everything working, and then he had somebody step in for him. He came home. A couple days later, we had a baby. And then a week later, the team was back from Humboldt. So it worked out. We thought we were going to have to stay in Humboldt longer, but luckily it didn't happen. So, but anyway, but then he was back to work. And so because of that, he was still home, and we had to take ourselves out of my family's bubble because of my uncle's health. So we just made it work. We did have some family come down, grandparents come down and like get tested and go through this whole quarantine process before they were allowed to enter our bubble. So then we get going in the season, not to mention we get going in the season. We're having this incredible season.
Yep.
Our team finds out on a Thursday that their Saturday game with Fresno State is canceled because of COVID. The Fresno State team had cases of COVID. Then the following week, we're thinking, okay, great, we're going to play Boise State. And so the team flies out to Boise, and Saturday morning, 5 hours before kick, the game gets canceled because of the number of cases that Boise State had. They get back on an airplane, they fly back to San Jose, and on the flight, when they land, they get on their Twitter, and they see that Santa Clara County and the state of California essentially is back in lockdown, and no contact sports can happen. So immediately my husband's on the phone with Stanford, with the 49ers. What are you doing? What's Cal doing?
Yeah.
How are you guys coping with all of this? So that was on a Sunday. On Tuesday, they had 7 different plans of what they were going to do. That weekend, they're supposed to play Hawaii. So they fly out on Thursday, they stay in Hawaii Thursday, Friday, they beat Hawaii on Saturday, they get on an airplane on Sunday, they fly to Vegas, and they're now living in Vegas. We haven't seen my husband in a week.
Oh, wow.
They're living in Vegas. They play tomorrow night against the University of Nevada, Reno. Because we're 5-0 right now, we're hopefully going to play in the conference championship and then possibly a bowl game. So most likely they'll stay in Vegas and they'll keep practicing until the conference championship. Everything goes well, they'll stay in Vegas another week, practice until they have a bowl game. So I am single momming it with the kiddos right now and working. I just got back from maternity leave a week ago, so this is my welcome back.
That's definitely
I was
a lot.
about to ask about that because it seemed like you just didn't stop. You just had your baby and went right back to work, it seemed.
It really never was a break. I mean, it was bad timing to get pregnant just because it's season, but we did some community outreach work with the players that I helped organize while I was on maternity leave. I'm doing the leadership stuff. So that coursework in addition to attending the classes. And then I'm available 24/7 for the players if they want me to help them with anything. Like right before I got on this call, I had a player hit me up, and I know he's working on a networking situation to try and get a job at Adobe when he graduates. So that's another thing is like, I just am available. I'm trying to manage my social media because I really want to enhance my social media presence with Beyond Football. And then on top of all of that, I'm trying to build out Beyond Football into our entire athletic department. So I'm in the process of pitching the student athlete development team to our AD, which I'll be doing on Monday. So
Nice.
It's insane. It's like buck wild. I can't even think about it. Like I'm just putting my head down and going. Like I'm just not even thinking about it. Just
Yeah.
I get 30 minutes at night before I go to bed to watch some like trash TV, like The Bachelor or something, and then I can decompress and go to sleep.
Just to help turn that brain off for a little bit and then be able to fall asleep and not have to deal with the kids at night, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess we'll start to wrap up here, but Stephanie, any last questions or anything you want to ask Tobruk before we let her have some peace and quiet to herself?
No, I think you did a fantastic job, Tobruk. You explained so many things, and like Thomas said earlier, gave us a lot of good ideas for us to bring to our committee and bring into our program as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really grateful to have connections with people that are in the same space as me, especially when I hopped into this space, I didn't really know anyone. So I think that if anything, the best thing to come out of law will be connections like this to continue to support one another. And there's not a lot of us, right, across the country. These programs just don't really exist, and that we're seeing more and more, growth and some intention behind them. But I think what's exciting, and I was thinking about this yesterday when I was speaking with my husband, is every single day when you work in athletics, all of us are doing student athlete development, right? Like whether you're a coach or you work in the business office or you're a senior admin, like we all do student athlete development. It's the reason why we're in that role. We want to enhance the student athlete experience. We want to give them opportunities that either we had because of our athletic experience or that we wished we had. But what law has taught me is that when you put intention behind it, when you put data behind it, when you put, a foundation with the proper structure and strategy, you can get so much more buy-in, and that buy-in comes from the campus. The buy-in comes in from our business leaders and connections within our corporate communities, whether it be sponsorships or donor cultivation and retention. It just gives us some meaning behind what we do and a name attached to it, because ultimately every athletic department is doing some level of development. It's just now we're doing it with some really sophisticated, direct intention behind it.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because we were talking, obviously, before we started the law, we put our application in together as it's a partner process, and it's like, crap, we don't know where to begin. And it's like, once we got to, I think it was week 3, and they started talking about all the different theories and everything else to build it off of, it's like, well, that makes a lot more sense than just trying all these different things. Like, I like this, I like that. And it's like, right. Once you get that intentionality behind it, mm-hmm. and be able to build something solid on something that's already there, that definitely makes it a lot easier and a lot more easy to comprehend.
For sure. I'll be honest, like when Sunny came and talked about the Clemson logic model, my mind exploded. I was just like, this is too much for me. Like, I can't. And then over this break, my partner and I, Annalisa Duarte, she and I worked on our logic model, and I'm like so proud of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Once you actually start diving into it and you start putting it together and you have conversation about it, and you can look at like what Clemson's was, and from the conversations you've had in class, that type of stuff, I'm just like, wow, this is really going to be cool. It starts to make sense,
Yeah.
And like you, I didn't really know where this class was going to take me or what it really meant. I mean, I just knew that I wanted something to inspire me and to motivate me. And so, yeah, we're only in like the first part of it, and I feel really confident in kind of what we're establishing and where we're headed.
Yep. Well, I know you mentioned you want to grow your social media game, and from what I've seen, it's been fantastic so far. So I'm excited to see how that goes. But where can people find you on social media if they want to follow you along in this process?
Yeah, so my personal Twitter, which is essentially my work Twitter, you might see little tidbits of personal stuff in there, but it's Tobruk Blaine _TB. My athletes call me TB. And then our social media for Beyond Football is San Jose State BF. That's also for Twitter and for Instagram. We have a LinkedIn as well, San Jose State Spartans Football. And so we highlight a lot of our athletes' work or what we're doing as a department within LinkedIn. And then I usually share it. I'm just Tobruk Blaine at LinkedIn. But yeah, I would say Instagram and Twitter are our strongest representation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for once again giving us some of your precious time. We know it's very valuable for you as a right now single mother with a husband in Vegas and two kids, two young kids. We know that that's not a very easy thing to always give up. So we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great to see you guys, and hope you have a great holiday. But we'll see you in about I guess a little over a month back in class, right?
Yep, that sounds about right. So for Lane, the Leadership Foundation podcast and vlog, I'm Thomas Poole.
Stephanie Jurasic.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.